Obviously, this is not the type of music that's a real pleasure to transcribe, as passages like this are pretty much some kind of finger music that emerges right from the keyboard, because it's just about the sheer mechanical pattern, and the trouble arises only then if you try to bring it onto the paper. The music, by the way, sounds like this. This kind of passages seems to belong to a special type of keyboard cadenzas that usually displays the chromatic shift of one or two chord qualities animated by a handy keyboard pattern, and I showed you already several of those where I used exclusively diminished seventh chords. Or with original Chopin pattern applied. And a simplified version of that. And I especially like this certain type of locked hand patterns. Now in this one, I'm gonna mix two different chord qualities as the pattern alternates between a third inversion dominant seventh and a diminished seventh chord. This chord combination isn't totally arbitrary though, as the bass line descends by semitones, and when you track down the root progressions, you obtain a real circle of fifths that's working below the surface level, which is not a necessary thing to know, but it's kinda interesting to see anyway.
Interesting.
Indeed.
The main difficulty with such a passage is to find a legitimate way out. In my opinion, it's always a good strategy to exit via the German sixth chord, because that's a very effective device. So you gotta settle on one of the dominant seventh chords, but in root position, and then resolve it like a German sixth, preferably into major, for the triumphant effect. In the example I showed you in the beginning, I pretty much went for the same strategy, but the section is a little more refined, as I was trying to really push towards the climax by increasing the tension gradually. I entered this passage with that block chord pattern I was just showing you, but after one iteration I increased the harmonic tempo by contracting triplets into duplets. After that, I'm cutting the harmonic content to just a single sonority and finally arrive on a harmonic plateau that's a pendulum between a dominant seventh chord and its common tone diminished seventh chord above A flat. On that last stage, there is just a single sonority left, and that solely judging by ear, everybody would recognize as a dominant seventh sonority, but that's actually a German sixth chord targeting C major, and that's the point where the actual music begins to evolve. So that section here is pretty much part of a lead-in. You may have noticed some traces of a piece by Franz Liszt in this music. For example, this cadential pattern or this type of a sudden chromatic median modulation. Well, if this would have been a real written composition, I probably wouldn't have done so, but I originally intended to do a video on the E minor Romance, but did one on Chopin instead. If you're interested in the scores and examples shown in this video here, check out my Patreon, where I provide additional materials to my videos and resources on composition and keyboard improvisation. If you want more instruction on this kind of patterns, I made already 2 other videos dealing with this type of subject. Thanks for watching, cheers, see you next time.